I am so excited to share the one and only Kait Singley with you. And, as we talked about in our first gathering, there's a lot of energy around the energy of Eros, right? It's like it's a very evocative and provocative content material to work with. And I don't trust just anyone with it. I really don't. I really believe that we're living in a time when we are taking off the lid in terms of all the constraints and all of the strangulation of that energy that lives within us is being in, and there's a lot of people exploring that space, and I'm so grateful for it. And I also I personally trust the people who take living and working with and teaching about getting access to that kind of that kind of energy with what's the word? It's funny. It's like they're all I words that are coming to mind: intentional, intensity, focus, integrity. That's the I word that I was looking for. Real integrity. And Kait Singley is one of those people. She is someone who I am just like honored to have as a sister in my personal life. And I have gotten to watch her journey and the level of integrity she has taken towards this wild world of working in the manner of Eros, and whether that's how it is expressed through sexuality, sacred sexuality, intimacy, and intimacy teaching, as a death doula, as a birth doula, as a woman who works the land and knows how to homestead and knows the ancient crafts of making things with her hands and sits around the fire circle and studies with elders. She's someone who I deeply trust in this space. And she's the kind of person who I wanted to bring to you as our first guest teacher, as someone who I trust that really knows how to bring us to the doorway, exactly where we are, as we are, to be in that life space, and to really do it in a good way that it's so funny, the words that are coming up, where we feel protected, where we feel in that kind of safe zone of, yes, we're being looked out for and we're being considered as we take this journey.
As Leah said, the journey that I've been on, it's so much about creating a sense of trust in oneself in the first in as like the foundation. And so we're here, each one of you is really here for you and for your sense of trust within yourself and what it feels like in your own body to know your yes, your no, to know what safe enough to proceed feels like, and what your comfort zone and what that right threshold of stretch is on this radical growth journey that you're on, which is so important in all the realms that you're exploring in this, if you're in the longer arc of the journey with Leah, but also just so especially in the realm of Eros and sexuality and just the root of our body. The literal connection to the earth and the base of our nervous system, right? All of the nerve endings of the central nervous system that come down our spine is anchored into the pelvis, in the pelvic floor. So what we're doing here is actually really practical in terms of your physical sense of capacity to be creative. So my journey has taken me into the work with Eros and with sexuality because I experience it. I've found it to be the root of all the other healing journeys, modalities I've taken. It all comes down to I am an animal body, a feeling, sensing, uh, uh, embodied life force. So anyway, so that's what I want to, that's a little context, a little flavor of what I want to invite each of you into here, is that we're here in a group, and yet in some blessed way, we're all here, we're all in our own homes. So I really want to encourage you to let the focus be on you. And I do this with all my clients, is you don't have to look at me at all. during this whole class, if you want to turn off your screen, if you want to look out the window, close your eyes, this is you for you, about you, for you, with yourself primarily. And I'm here as a guide and support, and the group is here holding a field of that protection Leah named and encouragement that we're actually all doing it together. Yeah, so let your cat out, go to the bathroom, take care of yourself as you need. We're not going to have any breaks, official break times, so please just do as you need. And like I said, you're welcome to have your video off, especially when we do exercises. You can just go inward. Um, yeah. So yeah, so as I was saying, we're starting, here we are in this erotic center. It may have been named as the second chakra. To me, it's really just physiologically, it's our center of gravity. So this space between the pubic bone and the belly button. There may be a reproductive center here. There you may, you may have association of arousal and pleasure as part of this center. So it's interesting actually to note, so the first chakra, first energy center that you started with is the root, right? The perineum, that base of the body. And then we go up to the second, which is usually that space between belly button and pubic bone, but it also can include the genitals. And so this is pretty radical, that in a storytelling course, a mystical journey, a spiritual journey, that we're inviting, even naming that we have genitals and that there's an opportunity to put our attention on them or to include them at whatever level feels right and good to you, whatever level feels safe to you. And we're going to really dial into what does that mean for you to feel good, to feel safe enough to proceed. So we're going to do that experientially here today. And I want to make the headline introduction before we do anything that the erotic nature is to welcome what is. It's also part of the principles of mindfulness, so that we're bringing mindful erotic embodiment is the name of this class, that we bring gentle awareness. We slow down the pace generally to beneath those externally imposed paces and productivity or performance orientation, to just really be inside, to be with ourselves primarily, with curiosity and self-compassion. Those are the headlines that I would just keep weaving in, is how can I bring curiosity and self-compassion? So you might even consider right now what some of the voices of curiosity and self-compassion might be. Maybe already you've had voices of fear or judgment or excitement or nervousness, or this topic can bring up some of our most vulnerable spots. And it also can bring up some of our most playful and wild and passionate ways of being. So I want to make room for all of it and continue to bring that curiosity of like, what is that sensation? Where does that come from? And how can I be really gentle with myself, really generous with myself in the face of the many good reasons we have, especially if we were raised, acculturated as women in female bodies, to be protective of this realm of our bodies and of our self-expression. So blanketing it all in that compassion and gentle curiosity. So, and you'll find I might often catch myself in the pace that gets excited and pause to take a breath. And I want to always invite that in you too. Is, where are we right now? To ask that everyone really know that you are responsible for your own limits and for your desires, for how far you stretch and for how close you hold. So, as I go into the exercises, there will always be a range of invitation. So, I want to invite you to take those pauses, take a breath, come back or stay with yourself. Let go of any judgment about how you're being perceived or impacting others. Just really, um, as long as you're in your zone, with you, for you, returning to that compassion and curiosity. Um, and just trust that your body is the authority here. So if I'm guiding something, I try to be really expansive and inclusive, but know that I'm not ever giving you direction or instruction that would override your body's ultimate authority and intelligence. So please fall back to your knowing and play with what feels right to you. And also, which could mean daring yourself to stretch a little further, to turn up your own heat, turn up your wildness and your playfulness. And it could mean slowing down, being more still, being more gentle. And it could also mean opening your eyes, coming up for air, popping out of the exercise, petting your cat, looking around the room at something that feels nourishing and resourcing. So, does that all feel good to continue? And then I want to give you all the general flow of the class, give you may have some vigilance running, some curiosity or excitement, wanting to know, what are we doing here? So next move is that I want to guide a grounding exercise, and it's going to be an initial, really, really gentle kind of introduction to embodied exploration. It's totally G-rated. Um, and and then from there we'll have some group reflection, a moment for people to pop in and, I'll ask some questions generally to the group about how that was for you, where you feeling you're at with that. And then I'll give a little more talking, a little bit about trauma and how we take care of ourselves as we start to confront what can be edgy material, and how to resource, how to titrate. And if those words make sense to you, awesome. If not, they will. How to create, like I said, that sense of safety uh, in your own body, safe enough to proceed. From there, we'll then go into another guided embodied exploration. This one will include the option to focus on the pelvis and that lower region of the body. And again, it'll always be up to you to stretch where that feels right for you. From there, I'll go a little deeper into a tiny bit of teaching about Eros, my philosophy of what Eros is and can include, and the breadth of it. And hopefully that's a little bit evocative and an invitation for you toward a longer, deeper sensory exploration. And so each of those three explorations, they're like gradually getting uh, um, there's always so many options, but getting deeper into the options of going into that root material of you in your erotic and creative body. And then after that last one, that third journey, we'll have plenty of time to come back to a closing circle, a little reflection, and take homes. And that will wind up our time so quick. So, without further ado, You can take this time if you want to be off camera, you're welcome to just come into your most comfortable place of where you are. Settle in and allow your breath to settle a little more deeply in your body. And you're welcome from where you are to have your eyes open or closed. You might experiment with as you make this invitation to feel into your body more. What do you notice when you have your eyes closed on the inside of your body? And if you try having your eyes open, you want to invite all the senses. So you might notice what you can hear. And without straining to listen for anything, just notice what sounds naturally drift into your ear canal and land in those vibrations of sound. Notice if you smell anything, if there's any taste or texture in your mouth. Is it wet or dry? And notice as you check out these sensations, if any sensation arises anywhere else in your body. As you smell, how does your belly feel? As you listen, are there any places of tension in your body? Can you feel into the points of contact of where your body meets the surfaces that are holding you? And if it feels good, you might give your weight over to that surface, that couch or seat, a little bit more, letting your weight just sink in and notice if you notice any difference there. Were you holding yourself up where you didn't need to? Is it easeful to let go and drop any tension? Or are there places that want to hold? Remembering that intention of curiosity and compassion. So, no judgment about anything you're noticing. We're really just learning the language of the body. You might notice that you have different surfaces of your body. So, you might feel the difference between the back of your body and the front of your body. You might notice if your weight is leaning a little more toward the front or to the back. You might find yourself naturally adjusting to what feels better to you. And just notice if you do that, this is your body's impulse toward pleasure. You might notice resistance to that. And that can be listened to too. Along with the front and back, you can do a scan of your body from head all the way down to your toes. And notice how it is as I propose. If you notice any response in your body when I say that you can claim this time and space for yourself. Welcoming whatever is true as you hear that possibility. Any sensations. So, yeah, yeah. With that, I want to just name and bring in a little bit of education about trauma, acknowledging that. My definition that I've come to work with is it's anything that's happened to us that is too much, like too much stimulation, too fast to process, and or too soon. It also is not as relevant like what the incident was, but how we experienced it and whether we had the tools and the support to process it for it not to be too much. Um, so we are all like collectively, I believe, in a chronic trauma. There is chronically too much happening that we're aware of it all, or far too much of it, for our very simple animal bodies, our nervous systems, to be able to process. And one of my trauma teachers, Peter Levine, uses this brilliant example of an animal in the forest who's chased by a predator and escapes. They shake it off. And all of us, every day need to be like shaking it off, moving it out, because that's the too much to process, is like we're holding it. So it's a lot. It's a lot to approach this work. And we're not going to dive into that degree of meeting and healing trauma here today. It's work that I really encourage, and especially collectively. I work one-on-one with people for this reason, because we're all carrying it and starting to do more groups, and we need more group work happening for this healing. But for right now, at this level of introduction, I just want to name that and really make it, normalize it, that as we start to feel stuff, the good news and bad news is that the more we learn to feel, the more we will feel. And that goes in the polarity, the duality of life, in that, for intimacy, the beauty of intimacy, there is heartbreak. And for pleasure, there is pain. For love, there is grief. For celebration and fulfillment, there is disappointment and loss. So it's a big proposition to feel more of that, to become more erotically embodied and alive and present to that. We are all given invitations. We are impacted by the world, by the environment, by our relationships all the time, with the invitation to feel these things fully, to rejoice and scream and dance and play when we feel that exuberance, and to fall to the floor weeping when we've experienced that loss. And that's the deer in the forest. That is us in our authentic human animal body. There's release, there's movement of emotion. That is our erotic birthright. So we're not meant to do any of it alone, is the other thing. So here we are doing one little bit together, and it needs to be taken in moderation. So like I said, here in this class, want to really invite that feeling in for yourself. How much can I blow on the bellows of the fire of what I feel when I feel in? Can I, or, whatever the metaphor is, dialing up, dialing open the dial to how much I allow myself to access what's inside. So I really am a proponent of titration. So that's the knowing where your dial is. How deep do you dive into the pools of what you feel inside? And at what point do you take a step back from that to open your eyes, look around? You can lift and stomp your heels. It's like a really simple, more human way of like shaking in the forest as that animal, like shake. As you get more practiced with embodying, these things you might come up with your own. Like some people, like I have developed this thing of like, oh, holding myself right here, my left hand on my right shoulder, like that's me coming back to, it's like my teddy bear, my safety blanket. Someone else does that too. Yeah, so stomping your heels on the floor is one. If there's a place of putting your hand on your body, but really opening your eyes, coming up for air is one primary way that I call it, of stepping out of what might be activating of trauma or of places that feel like too much. So let's explore that. Let's explore how you build a sense of safety, a safe, like a good, oh, that's the other thing, sorry, resource. So that's titration, what I just explained, coming up for air. Resource is having a go to that you know is a felt sense, a memory. It might be a way of touch or an object in your room that you can connect to, something that pulls you back to your comfort zone. Um, Hopefully, that's also enlivening, that's not just like dampening of your spirit, but that like reminds you of pure goodness in some way. So we're going to take a little journey to explore what that is for you, that you have then in your back pocket as like, oh, we're in a territory that I need to come back to good. This is what I'll have. So once again, you can come into focus on yourself. Eyes opened or closed, noticing your breath. And if you need to shake off any of what we just talked about, if that brought up anything that's difficult for you that you've walked with, just seeing again that I, as kind of auntie to this class today, I am wrapping a big quilted soft blanket around all of you of compassion for those tender places that may have not always been honored as they deserve to be. Right now, you are honored. And perhaps it's enfolded inside of this big quilted blanket of permission to be exactly who you are, that I want to invite you to find in your recesses of memory a time where you felt what you would call safe. Maybe there's a particular place in the world that you've been, perhaps even that you've returned to because you knew that this is a place where you feel comfortable in your own skin, that you feel at ease, that you can feel the full depth of your breath, and perhaps where you knew you could be yourself. Maybe it was with other people that you trusted, that you could ask for what you needed and you would be respected. or where you've been able to express yourself. Or perhaps it's a place or a way that you've been alone in the natural world. Really notice how you feel in this place. Notice how deep your breath goes. If you're outside, perhaps you can even feel the warmth of sun or the texture of the breeze on your skin. Really feeling into what it was like inside of yourself to know that you're okay here. And maybe everything out there is not necessarily okay, but that you are okay. Feel into the ground beneath you, maybe opening your awareness even a little more deeply to the earth beneath you that helps you feel that, helps you feel all that you are connected to. A much older and bigger world that's holding you. And in this place, you're able to feel that sense of what you might call safety. Just notice throughout your body any of the sensations here, any places where you feel relaxation, perhaps stillness, perhaps energy moving in one direction or another. Notice if there's any textures. If there's any place in your body, a location in your body that has your attention, really hone in on that location. How big is it? Is there a difference from the center to the periphery of of this of your heart, of your belly, of your gut, your root, wherever it is that has your attention? Perhaps there's a color, or again, some kind of texture. Is there a fluidity or a thickness, a heaviness or lightness? Just imagining if I didn't know what safety felt like, if I was just landed from another planet and didn't have the same body as a human, and I asked you to describe, how do you know what safe feels like? What is that in your body? Where do you feel that? Whatever it is what might be true for you right now. It might feel like the way you give yourself permission to be with resistance. It might feel like something really clear, like a rootedness through your spine, down the base of your body and into the earth. Just whatever it is for you. So taking your time to really explore and to anchor this in, I like to say like a somatic snapshot, really getting a bookmark here that you can return to, that you know if you've found it, and if not, compassion, curiosity about what you might need, what's not quite working for you that you might need to try to give yourself more of a sense of safety. Well, I think what I'll do is, having done that little dive, I want to go into yeah, just I want to share more of the my invitation to all of Eros. And then we'll go into the guided journey that will be a more spacious space for more silence, space for a deeper exploration that includes that and what I was going to just dive us back into with that last exploration. But you're welcome to even listen to this lecture-ish bit, this little philosophy bit from that place of mindful awareness, staying with your own body, listening for how what I speak about, what if that evokes anything for you, how that feels in your body to hear these concepts and proposals and invitations. And yeah, and use these tools that we've got so far of that resource, that peaceful, idyllic, comfortable space where you feel fully allowed to be yourself, respected and honored, and yeah, at peace. And yeah, use that and the sensations, and so we use the memory as kind of like a shortcut that's actually helping us get to sensations. So if you can also just anchor that snapshot, that somatic snapshot that you might have come to in that last journey, if you can anchor that as like, oh, I have a home base in my body that I know that I can turn my attention to that place and remind my body that I know how to feel that way. That's your resource to come back to. So So I named earlier that Eros, and you might have encountered this so far in this journey that you're on, that Eros is sexuality is one part of Eros, but I consider Eros like really the all-encompassing creative life force. Eros is everything. Everything is Eros. Um, and Eros refuses nothing. So the discomfort, the shadow, the trauma, the pain, as well as the pleasure. And there is a sort of a disillusion of duality, even that can happen in Eros, where it's those seeming opposites become pure sensation, become pure energy. And that's where the compassion comes in too, because we can embrace it all as life. So death is as much a part of life as life. It's really all one continuum from birth to growth to senescence, right? We don't even use that word, but I love it because we tend to ignore that part of life, right? Aging, decay, decline. We're in such a growth oriented culture that we have neglected this whole part of the cycle of life that feeds life. So then death, right? We have a very death phobic, death averse culture. But what a beautiful opportunity to embrace this part of everything that's actually part of ourselves, inevitably, that helps us actually experience life more. So it's that same thing of like, the more we experience the one, the more we can experience the other, and it's all part of the opportunity of being in a human life, is to actually invite all of it. So I don't know about any of you, but as an aging woman, I'm very aware in this culture that that whole phase of aging and of decline and changing of our bodies from that youthful, what we see and what we've been taught is vibrancy of, teens and 20s and 30s even, to then like that's what's valuable. And we do it in a gazillion ways. And the natural world is continually showing us that the decline, that the tree that falls in the forest and gives its body over to being consumed by mushrooms, to being transformed into medicine, to being a host for a vast diversity of life forms that feed and feed and feed new life. The wisdom that comes with letting go of it, of what was, and allowing whole new forms to come into being. I just think most of society is missing out on what it is to embrace aging. And even and even dying. I just see Leah cheering that on. Yeah. So this is the invitation to begin holding ourselves, including encompassing the whole of who we are, and thereby that ripples out to whole the world. And gosh, there's another piece of this invitation that offers us a root sense of belonging. So when we can find a way of being that all parts of ourselves are welcome, uh, then we find that we have we belong. There's no fractured bits of our identity that yeah, that have to kind of like vie for a place, for a voice, for an audience. Um, we get to be honest with ourselves in the complexity and diversity of all of who we are and the multitudes that we contain. So yeah, it's also an invitation. There's so much healing in that, as you can imagine. So dissolving that sense of other. Yeah. When we other, I'm making that into a verb. When we make other certain parts of ourselves or certain experiences that we're having, if we classify them as bad or unwelcome, things that we often do that with are things like jealousy, shame, vulnerability, selfishness. Those are things I don't know if you're human as I am, you've probably experienced them, and we tend to disown them. We dismember them from ourselves. And by doing that, we're actually cutting off a part of the channel of our own life force. So I'm not saying we should act on them and we should spit them out all over people, but there's this room for embracing them, for inviting them as part of that whole of ourselves, and that moving them in our bodies, allowing the freedom of that energy to move however it moves, invites, like that is the opening of the channel of your Eros, of your erotic life force. Yeah. So this is another reason we center sensation beneath the layers of interpretation, of meaning, of the stories that we tell. Though it's like, I know you're in a storytelling course, right? So it's getting down to what's at that raw animal body to reveal what's actually happening and allowing that to be so that we can allow it to transform. Is where we meet the cultural conditioning, the blockages, the limiting beliefs, and we allow those to transform, and we pull in those archetypes and those themes of a story that's empowering, that allows our full, authentic, creative, creative. We are all creative at our essence. That if you're alive, you are creative. Yeah. So it's getting at that root where we can allow that to move more freely, allowing more of your passionate, joyful self to live. Oh, um, so what I've been talking about so far, this is the invitation of all of what is, right? Um, Getting into the body, getting into the emotions, getting beneath those externally imposed perceptions and actually inviting the wholeness, and how that emerges moment to moment, day to day, as a living, dynamic, embodied, erotic life force, right? So I call that kind of like the emergent reality, right? Sometimes giving yourself that exploration is going to be, like we said, uncomfortable. It's going to be messy and maybe ugly. You know, it's going to be those some of those things that we want to judge, and that's why I'm naming, like, invite all of it. And it's going to be like surprisingly beautiful. And I want to say this all goes for this, everything I'm saying can be overlaid into the field of sex and sexuality too. If you haven't already been translating or interpreting or bringing that along, I want to just name that everything we're talking about, Eros, like it includes sex, but it's not just sex. Yeah. So in this realm of the erotic, of vitality, um, we're not just welcoming the good parts and that everything else is in the way. Um, I want to really say those painful parts, those difficult parts, how we meet, how we're experiencing that cultural conditioning and whatnot, or those places where we hit limitations, maybe in your sexual life or in your creative life. Those meeting those and being present to them and listening and responding and expressing what needs to be expressed and asking for or receiving or giving to yourself what's truly needed, that you know through feeling, that is the way. So anything you come across on the path is never in the way. It is the way, essential to vitality. Even if it's frustrating, you know, it's how you be with it compassionately, creatively, curiously, that that creates the dance that you're in. So so along with that piece of being with what emerges, we do sometimes also need to affirm the positive possibility, right? Sometimes we need to know, like, but where do we want to go? What's the vision? What's the ideal? What's the, I really won't use the word goal, but in the common paradigm, you know, capitalist paradigm, it would be a goal. But in the exploration of Eros, it's more like the intention or the vision, the sense of where we want to be, you know? So these things have to be in balance, right? Sometimes we can allow what's emergent without a sense of where we want to go. That's missing part of the human experience. That's part of being a creator, a creative, is that we have a sense of where we want to orient to. Yeah. Okay. This is a lot of talking, and hopefully it's evocative also. Because I want to anchor that in, that I'm also really welcoming your desire and this feeling into this lower center, this pelvic root and creative center, reproductive or just arousal and pleasure center. This is where your desire lives. So let's not leave that out. Let's make room for, what do you want? And I want to say it's the going into the womb of what is, that we make room for those new possibilities. Yeah. So I want to make room for any questions, comments, reflection, and then we'll dive into our last journey that incorporates all of that.
As a word nerd, I just love the word desire, because when you go to the etymology of it, it means of the stars. And so when you're following your desire, you're following the imprint of your astrology, for lack of a better expression of it. And it just reminds me that it's like I grew up thinking that desire was this naughty, bad word, that it was all intermingled with lust. And it was in studying language that I was like, oh my God, when I'm following my desire, I'm actually following my destiny. I'm following like the impulse of life and how it wants to be expressed through me, which is such a different recalibration with that language.
So what you're doing here, and what I'm going to propose when we leave this class today as a daily practice or a few times a week practice, however you can incorporate it into your life, the practice of this rich embodiment is like watering that little plant. And it's, I've heard it said by spiritual teachers that it's not the vision quest or the medicine journey that actually evolves or transforms us. It's the regular daily practice. That's where we see the growth and transformation. Slowly, daily, or day by day, a little bit over time. We are the natural world. We grow just like those plants. Yeah, and we're sensitive just like those plants. Do people feel ready to dance a little more deeply with yourself, with your own experiences? So for this next little bit, I want to invite you to really quickly, maybe even within arm's reach, you may have an object. It doesn't have to be any particular form or function, perhaps something that fits in your hands and has, first glance, something of a compelling texture, weight, really looking at it for sensation rather than function. Don't think about it too much. So it's animal body quality of sense experiment, exploration. And if you found that object, you can just set it down near you. because we will, as always, begin with just you with you, and you'll have it at hand. So take your time to get comfy, to settle in. Doing that scan of awareness from head to feet as you check in with what you need to be more comfortable, what it is that allows you to feel more of yourself, to claim this time and space for yourself. As you settle into your body, your breath, you might call to mind that sense of resource, perhaps even through the memory of being in a favorite place where you feel not only peaceful, but sensually alive. So, when you invite that possibility of being not only relaxed and open, but also enlivened, in that your senses are awake. And if you are in a memory or in your present space, you can feel the temperature of the air on your skin. Notice the light behind your eyelids. The sound. Can you smell? Textures in your mouth. And if it feels good to you, you might even just explore your mouth a little bit, your tongue and the way that it can press on the roof, and feel the textures of your teeth and curl or twist, swallow. Your mouth is one access to the erotic, the opening of the channel that connects all the way down your spine, your core, to your root, where your breath comes in and your voice comes out. So, as you explore in this session, if you have the freedom and the privacy to feel safe enough in your voice to let any sounds come through, you might play with that if that's a right edge for you to let a little sound on the exhale, or feel if there's any naturally evoked expression of pleasure in your, as we explore a little bit more with touch and with your own body, your felt senses, and especially our pelvis. We make more room. We open that channel for more vibration, more sensation to come through. So, feeling into your body, you might do so with a touch of the hand or just with your focused awareness. Come to your heart, Feeling for any sensation that's there. If it's the warmth and weight of your own hand, if you can feel the pulse of your heart, and any message, meaning, emotion that's present there. And as and if this feels right and good to you, you can turn your attention and even a hand to your pelvis, to this lower center. And you might explore where you're called to connect if you are. Is it to that place below the belly button, to the pubic mound or pubic bone, or even directly to your own genitals? Just notice if, as you do that, there's any response throughout the rest of your body. Listening here as well for any sensations. Also, room for any emotions, messages, or meanings, but seeing if you can tell the difference. Notice if in this space of listening, you feel any impulse or desire for movement, for different textures of touch. Feel what is right and good for you right now to be with yourself with curiosity and compassion. And with anything that you have come up with as your positive possibility. Is there a desire that arises for how you want to feel in your erotic being? Perhaps parts of yourself that you want to learn to include or to be with, or sensory experiences that you are longing for, envisioning. Sensing how you feel as an erotically enlivened being. And what comes up as you consider that intention or whatever desires are there for you. From here, If you notice that you're very comfortable being in touch with your body and exploring further with your body, you can stay going in that direction. And if perhaps you're wanting a little bit safer edge to step back to, it can really be a fun and simple thing to have our attention on an object, this object that you've found. And either way, perhaps you love exploring your body, but you're curious right now about this whole object thing. So just feel into what's right for you. And if you want to be picking up the object, if you want to keep your touch on your own body, or perhaps just your loving attention, gazing at your body with your mind's eye, you know your range. And I want to invite your exploration here with object or body to release any interpretation about function or, yeah, meaning, and just really tune into the sensations. So noticing weight, noticing what parts of your hand are in contact. And with that curiosity, seeing what it might feel like to explore with different parts of your hand. Feel the difference between the palm and the fingertips. Even the difference between the pads of the finger, where your fingerprints are, and the tips underneath the fingernails. Notice what pressure feels right for you right now. Continually asking what could be more pleasurable or even more comfortable. Might be called to something a little more stimulating, like fingernails, or a faster or lighter texture of touch. Knowing that this is your exploration for your curious discovery. So anything that feels right to you is right. Feeling into that trust of yourself. Play around with stillness, with dynamic versus static pressure. So, like a rolling, sliding versus pressing in. Your creativity is alive in your own hands. If you are with your body, you are both the toucher and the touchy. You might tune into what you feel in those different locations. Camera 1, camera 2. Fingertips, skin surface beneath them. Notice as you explore how your breath is. If you can feel your heart rate. how deep your breath is. How your pelvis, your root, and your gut are responding. Are they relaxed? Is there any tension? Really feeling free to explore where feels right to you, where on your body wants touch. And if in the root, feel the depth and the dimensions of your pelvis here. Actually, yeah, it's a good moment for wherever your attention is. If it feels right and good to you, to anchor all of us together back toward the pelvis, toward this second chakra, erotic center, with your mind's eye or with your hands, feeling your hips right to left, perhaps your sacrum to your pubic bone, or at least imagining them, and the fullness of the bowl that encompasses that circumference. And holds all of that space, your pelvis, your genitals, your root and anus. Always being mindful of your right edge of comfort with putting your attention on this part of your body. As we come toward closing this exercise, just anchoring into anything here that feels sound, that feels uh, I want to say that's safe enough, or that feels like an anchor into a groundedness and a belonging that allows you to continue in this exploration, whatever level is good for you, that you can come back to this practice of embodied exploration, a way of being with yourself. All those intentions toward your desires that are rooted in your creative center. So, with a compassionate bow to all that has shown up here for you in your own body, we're going to begin to bring our attention back toward the group, taking your time to really honor your pace, your animal body, acknowledging yourself for being with yourself in these ways. And if you're willing, as you're ready, I invite you to come back to the group. Uh, Video if possible, chat if not, for a little closing reflection together. Coming together, you might just hold in your thoughts, in your heart, in your mind, in your body, a sense of something you discovered or can appreciate about yourself today for these last 2 hours? Something you discovered, something that you recognized maybe again that you appreciate about yourself. I want to invite one more step to it is if everyone holding that thought for yourself, that sense for yourself, could translate that into a gesture or a posture, some embodied communication. If there's a way that you feel in yourself that would more fully express that appreciation for yourself, you can come into that gesture now. Maybe there's a sound, a posture, a gesture. Yeah. Beautiful. Taking a couple breaths here and knowing that your body knows this place. You know yourself here. You can always return here. Okay. Well, so with parting inspiration, I want to propose an ongoing practice, an exploration of this. I call it me time, which, we all could use a regular practice of me time. In this case, I use the acronym Mindful Erotic Embodiment. And it can be as little as 5 minutes. That can be helpful to set a container of, honestly, I have playlists. If you follow me on Spotify, all of the playlists titled MMM something, because that was for mindful morning masturbation, not necessarily masturbatory, but self-exploratory in whatever way is pleasurable for you. A container of song or set a timer or whatever it is to help you have that disciplined, focused space of this is me time, and bring those intentions and that curiosity and compassion and that those qualities of exploration of touch to your own body, to this particularly creative center, lower chakra, second chakra, lower center, because this is the root. You're on this long journey about your creativity and your aliveness really starts there in the root. Your nervous system, as I said, is anchored there, and we can derive so much possibility from being with this place in our bodies. Me time. That's your home play inspiration assignment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kait, for opening this gateway to mindful erotic embodiment. And I just so appreciate that. And yes, we'll send a replay email out. And with that, we'll send that link that Kait's talking about. And I'll also send a link to her website. I know that she works with people one-on-one in person and on Skype. Is that right? Or Zoom?
Yep.
Or where now? And many of you are in the Eros class, but if you came in just to get introduced to our speaker series, there will be 5 more speakers over the next 5 weeks, 4 more speakers over the next 5 weeks. And they're really following everything from, more embodiment, but also more play with creativity, both how we express it for ourselves in terms of relationship to spirit, and also into the world as social action. Again, all looking at that Eros energy that is expressed in so many ways through us. And for those of you who feel called to join us, you have like just a few more days, like 3 more days, to get underneath the doorway and jump into class with us. We have a big assignment that we're doing that we'll be sharing next week, that you have time to get in there and watch the video and prepare yourself for this kind of adventure into, I was writing today, it's like when so much around us is dying and so much structure is shifting and transforming, I feel like my commitment as a human and as an artist is to know how to find the life. And that to me is the core principle of being a part of the creative emergent process of where and how does life want to live through this transitionary time that we're in. And to me, that's all about like ground zero. How do I be in relationship to Eros so I can follow that life force? So that's why I'm personally passionate about doing this class right now of all time. So then we can take ourselves off mute and say thank you, thank you, thank you.